the shocking origins of the royal family, how it all began. Before we dive in, if you enjoy fascinating history stories like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you never miss out on the next deep dive. Imagine a world with no presidents, no prime ministers, no elections, just chaos, scattered tribes, and constant battles for survival. Hard to picture, right? That's exactly what much of Europe looked like over 1,000 years ago. There were no countries in the way we think of them today. Instead, there were small communities, each trying to protect their land, their people, and their resources. And in times like that, one thing mattered more than anything else: power. How did one person go from being just another fighter to being called king? Let's rewind to medieval Europe, a time of castles, knights, and constant conflict. Back then, land wasn't just property. It was everything. If you own land, you control food. If you controlled food, you controlled people. And if you controlled people, well, you had power. Some individuals, usually skilled warriors or strategic thinkers, began conquering large areas of land through battles or alliances. Others simply bought their way into influence. These powerful landowners became known as lords. As their territories grew, so did their responsibilities. They needed armies to defend their lands, systems to manage their people, and authority to maintain order. So what did they do? They created a system. Feudalism wasn't just a system, it was a survival strategy. Here's how it worked. A king, or the most powerful lord, owned the land. He granted portions of it to nobles or vassals. In return, those nobles promised loyalty and military support. Below them were knights and peasants, each playing their part. It was like a pyramid of power with the king at the very top. The king wasn't always the strongest fighter. Sometimes, he was just the one who convinced everyone else he deserved to lead. So how did people accept that? Early kings weren't always born into royalty. In fact, many of them fought their way to the top. Picture this. A powerful war leader wins multiple battles, protects his people, and gains their trust. Slowly, others begin to follow him. Not because they have to, but because they believe in his leadership. Eventually, someone says, "Why don't we make him king?" And just like that, a monarchy is born. But of course, it wasn't always that simple. Some leaders declared themselves king without asking. Others were chosen by councils of nobles. And in some cases, the title was decided through intense rivalries and wars. Which raises another question. If kings weren't always born into power, when did royalty become a family thing? At some point, kings realized something important. Why should I let someone else take my throne when I can pass it to my child? And just like that, the concept of royal families began. Instead of choosing a new leader each time, the crown would be passed down through generations. This created stability, but also a lot of drama. Think about it. What happens if there are multiple heirs? What if the next in line isn't capable? What if someone else wants the throne? Suddenly, power wasn't just about leadership. It became about bloodlines, inheritance, and legacy. Royal drama, betrayals, wars, and power struggles. Let's be honest, royal history is anything but boring. Behind the crowns and castles were stories filled with sibling rivalries, betrayals, secret alliances, full-blown wars over the throne. In some cases, brothers fought brothers. In others, entire nations went to war just to decide who should be king. One wrong move could mean losing everything. But despite all this chaos, monarchies continued to grow stronger. To strengthen their authority, many kings began claiming they were chosen by God. This idea, known as the divine right of kings, made it nearly impossible to question their rule. Because if a king was chosen by God, who could argue against that? This belief gave monarchs incredible power and helped solidify the idea of royalty as something sacred, not just political. But it also raised an interesting thought. Did people truly believe it, or were they just afraid to challenge it? Royalty wasn't just about ruling, it was also about image. Kings and queens needed to look powerful. That's why they built massive castles, grand palaces, lavish courts filled with luxury. Every detail, from the crown on their head to the throne they sat on, was designed to send one message: I am in charge. And it worked. People didn't just see their rulers as leaders, they saw them as larger-than-life figures. But as time went on, something unexpected began to happen. The story of the royal family isn't just about the past. It's still being written today. From medieval battlefields to modern headlines, royalty continues to evolve, surprise, and captivate. And who knows? The next chapter might be even more unexpected than the last. What part of royal history surprised you the most? Do you think monarchies still matter in today's world, or are they just traditions that refuse to fade? Drop your thoughts. Let's talk about it. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you want more stories that make history feel alive.